They say refereeing is at its absolute best when you barely even notice it's happening. You're not supposed to remember the official's name or care about the remote video booth, or even glance at that little monitor parked right on the edge of the pitch. But at the 2026 World Cup, we didn't just notice them. We couldn't take our eyes off them. This was the tournament where the review booth cooked up just as much raw drama as the grass itself. It was a month where a single slow-motion replay could completely obliterate a country's lifelong dream in less than 30 seconds, leaving millions of fans across the globe utterly convinced that the entire spectacle was rigged from the start. So, we are diving deep into 15 of the absolute most controversial, head-scratching refereeing decisions of the whole tournament. And buckle up, because this is one hell of a psychological roller coaster. Before we kick off, there is one crucial rule you have to wrap your head around, because it explains practically half of the madness we're about to cover. The video assistant referee is strictly locked into reviewing only 4 specific scenarios: whether a goal should stand, whether a penalty is legit, whether a card went to the wrong player, whether a tackle deserves a straight red. That is it. The system is completely powerless to hand out a simple yellow card. So, when an official gets called over to the monitor to dissect a nasty challenge, their only real choices are to do absolutely nothing or to send the guy packing. There is no middle ground, no compromise. Keep that massive structural flaw tucked in your back pocket, because it is about to unleash pure, unadulterated chaos on the pitch. Starting things off at the absolute sharpest, highest stakes end of the tournament, we look at Spain taking on France in the semifinals. In the opening half, Lamine Yamal went flying to the turf under a heavy challenge from French defender Lucas Digne, and referee Ivan Barton didn't hesitate for a second before pointing straight to the penalty spot. Spain tucked it away, grabbed the momentum, and never looked back. But the instant replay set the internet on fire for French fans everywhere. To almost any neutral eye, the ball looked like it clearly struck Yamal's own arm first, which, legally, should have meant a handball and a free kick going the exact opposite direction. Definitely not a penalty. Yet, the review booth stayed completely silent. The penalty stood, and Spain rode that wave all the way into the final match. Now, the counter-argument is perfectly valid. There was undeniable contact on Yamal inside the box, and honestly, France were thoroughly outplayed from start to finish anyway. But when a single decision helps punch one team's ticket to a World Cup final while dragging the other down to the heartbreaking consolation playoff, it's always going to be dissected frame by frame. This is one of those moments that fans will be shouting about in pubs for the next 20 years. Moving to our second spot, we see that exact 4-scenario flaw I warned you about instantly, triggering its first major catastrophe. It's the infamous Breel Embolo red card during Argentina's high-tension quarterfinal showdown against Switzerland. Right after the Swiss managed to claw their way back to an equalizer, referee João Pinheiro flashed a yellow card at Argentina, Leandro Paredes, for a seemingly soft foul on Embolo. The review booth took a closer look and realized Embolo had actually launched himself into the net air well before any contact even happened. But here's the catch. The video assistant can't just quietly cancel Paredes' yellow card and move on with the game. Instead, they dug into the rulebook and pulled out the mistaken identity clause to transfer the booking. That meant the card was flipped onto Embolo for simulation. And since Embolo was already sitting on a yellow from earlier, he was instantly shown a red. Just like that, a surging Swiss team that was actively pushing for a win was suddenly crippled down to 10 men, ultimately collapsing in a 3-1 defeat. Afterward, Swiss coach Murat Yakin held nothing back, branding the rule completely unacceptable. The truly maddening part of it all is that Embolo actually did dive, so technically, the call was right on the money. But that specific mistaken identity loophole had virtually never been twisted in that would-have direction before. The fact that it made its grand, bizarre debut just in time to hand the defending champions a massive numerical advantage in a World Cup quarterfinal poured premium gasoline right onto an already roaring conspiracy fire. For number 3, we are staying locked into that exact same quarterfinal block for a ruling that opened up a deeply strange, unsettling new door in modern football. Torbjørn Hegem thought he had just fired Norway into the lead off a chaotic corner rebound in the 55th minute. A gritty, hard-fought goal that sent the entire Norwegian end into absolute raptures. But the television replays quickly exposed a problem. Right as the corner was being delivered, Erling Haaland had aggressively shoved Elliot Anderson straight to the ground with both arms before the ball was even considered live or in coluves. Now, under a brand new World Cup rule clarification, an attacking foul committed right before a restart can actually be retroactively reviewed, if it directly creates the goal that follows. The officials on duty decided Haaland's physical push did exactly that, since he remained heavily involved in the exact sequence of play that ended with the ball hitting the net. The goal was wiped off the board, and the corner was ordered to be taken all over again. By the strict, pedantic letter of the new law, you could technically defend the call. But it opened up a dizzying, terrifying new frontier of what the review booth can reach back in time to undo. The unsettling idea that a minor shove happening before the ball is even live can completely invalidate a goal seconds later left a lot of purists wondering where the line is officially drawn now. It makes you wonder how many perfectly spectacular goals are going to be ripped apart in the future just because officials go hunting for a tiny nudge in the deep buildup. Number 4 on the list is the exact moment this tournament stopped being a sports story and escalated into a full-blown international diplomatic incident. It's the Folarin Balogun red card in the round of 32 against Bosnia and Herzegovina. The American striker accidentally stepped right onto defender Denis Hadjikadunic ankle in a messy collision that looked like absolutely nothing at full speed, but appeared completely horrifying when dragged down into slow motion. Most football experts looking at it figured a yellow card was the absolute maximum punishment, but the referee was instructed to go check the monitor. And because of that rigid 4-scenario limitation, his only real choices were to completely ignore it or flash a straight red. He chose the red. And that's when the tournament completely lost its mind off the pitch. Donald Trump, the president of one of the main host nations, actually got on the phone to speak directly with FIFA president Gianni Infantino about the mandatory suspension. Magically, a supposedly independent FIFA appeals commission stepped in and wiped away Balogun Kaplan so he could suit up for the round of 16. The message sent to the rest of the football world was blindingly obvious. The rules of the beautiful game could be bent and broken if the right powerful politician made a phone call. The blatant double standard screamed even louder when you looked at England's Jarell Quansah, who was sent off against Mexico in the very same tournament, received absolutely no political favors, and was forced to sit out a brutal 2-match ban. Same tournament. 2 identical red cards, but 2 completely parallel universes of justice. When you step back and look at the sheer, unmitigated absurdity of it, it's mind-blowing. A split-second tangle of legs, the exact kind of routine tackle that's usually completely forgotten by the time the morning highlights roll around, was blown up by a machine into a red card, then warped into a diplomatic saga, and finally morphed into a global firestorm over whether the World Cup itself was fundamentally for sale. The technology designed to bring absolute clarity didn't even get the call right, and it thoroughly torched the sport's remaining credibility in the process. Our 5th spot drags us straight back to the exact moment the grand conspiracy theory was officially born. Argentina's opening group match against Algeria. In the first half of play, Lionel Messi went charging into a challenge against the Algerian captain Issa Mandi, running his studs high and hard straight down the defender's calf. Multiple television pundits watching live called it a stone-cold, undeniable sending off. Yet, the referee on the pitch only pulled out a yellow, and the video booth quietly waved it right on through. Messi, who would eventually go on to finish the summer as the tournament's top goalscorer, stayed on the grass and inevitably completed a brilliant hat-trick. The Algerian team was so utterly furious that they went as far as lodging a formal, written complaint with FIFA, explicitly targeting that exact tackle. Now, in all fairness, it genuinely might not have been intentional, but the blatant leniency handed to the biggest superstar in the history of the sport in-game, number 1, instantly became the foundational gospel for every single anti-Argentina theory that followed. This was the exact second the seed of doubt was planted in the minds of football fans everywhere. Number 6 is, without a doubt, the most massively consequential and disruptive decision of the entire summer. It's Egypt taking on Argentina in the round of 16. The exact match that convinced millions of casual viewers that the entire World Cup was operating on a pre-written script. Egypt were playing out of their skins, looking absolutely magnificent, and the entire stadium thought they had just doubled their lead to 2-0 against the reigning world champions, with a flawless counter-attacking finish. But the review booth came calling, pulling the play all the way back to rule that Marwan Atiyah had supposedly fouled Lisandro Martinez in the initial build-up. The problem? That alleged foul had taken place roughly 20 seconds earlier, nearly 100 yards down the pitch, at the complete opposite end of the stadium. Critics immediately began asking the obvious question, if officials can reach that incredibly far back in time and space to erase a goal, Has any legal goal ever truly been scored in the modern era? To their credit, Egypt didn't fold and actually managed to legitimately score their second goal shortly after. But Argentina stormed right back, blasting in 3 goals in a devastating 13-minute blitz, capped off by an Enzo Fernandez header deep in stoppage time. Egypt's manager, Hossam Hassan, was absolutely volcanic in his post-match press conference, openly declaring to the cameras that the powers that be clearly just wanted Messi to stay in the first tournament, before vowing he would never watch another single minute of the World Cup as long as he lived. The reason this particular call cut so incredibly deep into the sporting psyche was the blinding, undeniable double standard. The forensic, hyper-focused 20-second, 100-yard deep dive that mercilessly killed Egypt's goal was completely missing in action. When it came to a foul Egypt swore happened right before Argentina's dramatic winning goal. One team was put under a microscope. The other was handed the absolute benefit of the doubt. This single decision elevated the video assistant referee conspiracy from a funny internet meme into a genuine, passionate global movement. One that over 6 million people would eventually cite when they signed a massive online petition demanding the champions be thrown out of the tournament entirely. And it's worth taking a brief second to stop right here, because these recurring calls get right to the core, rotting sickness of this entire technological era. The video assistant referee was originally marketed and sold to us as an objective machine, designed to increase trust and fairness in the game. Instead, at this tournament, it achieved the exact opposite effect. It has conditioned fans to instantly glance nervously at the referee before they even dare to celebrate a goal. A veteran former FIFA official turned television analyst, Christina Unkel, captured the bleak mood perfectly this summer when she admitted that fan confidence is completely eroded right now, adding that she had never witnessed this specific level of raw, unbridled anger in her entire professional career. A trust machine that actively destroys trust. Make sure to remember that phrase as we keep rolling down the list. Number 7 on our countdown is heartbreak of the absolute purest, most devastating kind. It's Iran. In the dying seconds of their high-stakes final group match against Egypt, 93 minutes were already on the clock. A coveted spot in the knockout stages was hanging entirely in the balance, and Shohei Khalilzadeh managed to poke the ball home in the middle of a chaotic, frantic goalmouth scramble. It was a moment that sent Iran, a team that had punched miles above their weight class all tournament, and had been completely written off by the media before a ball was even kicked straight into the round of 16. Khalilzadeh ripped his jersey off in pure, unadulterated delirium. The entire substitute bench emptied onto the field, and an entire nation collectively held its breath. And then, the review booth drew its lines. Those cold, clinical, computer-generated geometry lines. The official graphic flashed on the screen, revealing that Khalilzadeh had been ruled offside by a toe. A single, solitary toe, on the absolute final kick of their entire World Cup campaign. Now, by the strict letter of the law, it was technically the correct call. Nobody could honestly argue with the cold math of the computer, but it stood as a brutal, painful illustration of exactly how this modern technology can take a moment of pure, transcendent human joy and reduce a nation's entire collective soul to a matter of millimeters measured by a cold machine. It was technically perfect, and completely soul-crushing all at the exact same time. Moving to number 8, we run right into the tournament's most profoundly poetic tragedy. Portugal were clinging to a 2-1 lead in the absolute final minute of their round of 32 clash when Joško Gvardiol bundled the ball over the line for what looked like a miraculous, dramatic scrambled equalizer to force extra time. The stadium erupted into absolute bedlam, with players sprinting wildly to the corner flag and a proud nation daring to dream of one last magical chapter. But the video assistants didn't look at the standard broadcast cameras, which showed absolutely nothing out of the ordinary. Instead, they tapped into the high-tech motion sensor buried deep inside the match ball itself. The microchip had picked up the faintest, most imperceptible graze off the head of Croatian substitute Igor Matanovic somewhere early in the chaotic buildup, a touch that was utterly, completely invisible to the naked human eye. That microscopic contact was just enough to technically place Mario Pasalic in an offside position, and the goal was erased from reality as if it had never even happened. That cold technological decision effectively extended Cristiano Ronaldo's grand World Cup farewell tour, while in the very same breath, bringing the legendary international career of Luka Modric to a sudden, unceremonious end in defeat. A 24-year journey, helmed by one of the most magnificent midfielders to ever lace up a pair of boots, was permanently ended by a single strand of hair and a computer chip. It was technically correct if you choose to blindly trust the tech, but emotionally devastating no matter what you believe in. Number 9 puts us right in the middle of one of the most fiercely debated incidents of the entire summer, famously known as Cablegate. England were just seconds away from heading into the halftime tunnel, trailing by a goal to a tough Norway side, when Jude Bellingham conjured a piece of absolute magic to smash in a brilliant equalizer. But the Norwegian players were completely apoplectic with rage, screaming that goalkeeper Ørjan Nyland's initial clearance had clearly clipped one of the heavy steel cables suspending the overhead spider cam, noticeably altering the flight of the ball before it dropped kindly to Elliot Anderson, who started the entire goal-scoring sequence. Norwegian midfielder Sander Berge openly called the entire situation ridiculous. FIFA immediately fired back, presenting data from the internal chip inside the ball, claiming there was no sudden peak in the sensors' readings, and therefore absolutely zero contact with the wire. So, it ultimately came down to a battle between your own lying eyes, which clearly saw one thing, versus a proprietary microchip that claimed another, with FIFA asking the entire world to just blindly trust the technology. The delicious, bitter irony of it all is that this is the exact same sensor system that claims to be sensitive enough to detect a passing hair, yet somehow it couldn't definitively tell whether a high-velocity matchball smacked dead into a massive steel cable. Norway ultimately crashed out of the tournament in a 2-1 loss, completely convinced to their core that a television camera wire played a direct hand in their eviction. Coming in at number 10 is a definitive gut punch of an elimination, featuring Belgium going toe-to-toe with Senegal in the round of 32. Deep into exhausting extra time, the match was slowly crawling its way toward a penalty shootout, with barely a single decent chance created between either side for an hour. Suddenly, Youri Tielemans went down in a heap inside the penalty box. The referee on the pitch, said Martinez, initially looked completely unimpressed, flinging his arms out, signaling to play on, and indicating there was absolutely nothing to see. But a painfully long, agonizingly drawn-out video review eventually dragged him over to the pitch-side monitor. After staring at the screen from multiple angles, he somehow decided that Lamine Yamal had made illegal contact. And let's be real here, it was the absolute faintest, most imaginary whisper of contact, while clumsily trying to defend an incoming cross. Penalty awarded. Tielemans stepped up, coolly buried it, and Belgium completed a stunning comeback from 2 goals down to win 3-2, instantly dumping an incredibly talented Senegal squad straight out of the tournament. Just like that, a proud African team that had clawed their way back and looked fully prepared for the dramatic lottery of a penalty shootout was sent packing on a microscopic nudge you could barely even spot in super slow motion. If you're a Senegal fan, that is the exact kind of deeply unjust exit that haunts your sports psyche for decades. Number 11 brings us a massive blunder that genuinely had the power to completely reshape an entire group standings. During England's incredibly dull, toothless group stage draw against Ghana, Prince Adu looked to be completely hauled down in the box by a wildly reckless, horribly mistimed tackle from Ezri Konsa. It was the absolute textbook definition of a stonewall coming together that gets pointed straight to the penalty spot 9 times out of 10. Yet, referee Saïd Martinez, the very same official who would later hand Belgium that incredibly soft penalty, waved play on with total, unflinching confidence. And the review booth, completely inexplicably, chose not to intervene at all. It is virtually impossible to look at that sequence as anything other than a massive, clear-cut oversight by the officiating crew. And this one had massive consequences. Had Ghana been awarded that blatant penalty and tucked it away, the final table standings of that entire group would have looked dramatically different. It would have triggered a massive domino effect on who officially advanced to the knockouts, and who was forced to pack their bags and fly home early. It stands as a stark reminder that the critical decisions the video assistants quietly choose to ignore can be every bit as massive and destructive as the explosive ones they actually make. Staying with the theme of completely denied penalties, number 12 takes us to a massive group stage clash between France and Senegal. The electric Kylian Mbappé went crashing to the turf under what looked like a terribly mistimed challenge from Sadio Mane right inside the 18-yard box. To almost anyone watching live, it looked completely obvious. A desperate defender getting his legs completely tangled up with the fastest man on the planet. But referee Alireza Fagani immediately shook his head no. The review booth actually stepped in and suggested he go take a second look at the monitor, which is a lot rarer than people realize. But Fagani trotted over to the screen, studied the footage, and stubbornly stuck right to his guns. He bizarrely concluded that it was actually Mbappe who had deliberately initiated the gay contact. A wild verdict that virtually no other human being on the planet arrived at while watching the exact same replay. It stood as one of the very first true head-scratchers of the entire tournament, a dark omen of the total officiating confusion that was to come. France's comfortable victory in the end meant the incident never completely boiled over into a national scandal, but it planted a dangerous, early seed of doubt about exactly what criteria were being used to make these monumental calls. Number 13 lands us right in the middle of a massive, ongoing cluster of English penalty grievances across the entire tournament. First up was the high-intensity round of 16 match against DR Congo. Harry Kane broke clean through the defense and hit the deck hard as the opposing goalkeeper, Lionel Messi, came sliding in and made clear contact with the striker. Not only did referee Adham Makadme wave the play away, he practically accused Kane of diving to his face, though tellingly, he didn't actually have the guts to book him for simulation. The review booth checked it, shrugged their shoulders, and moved on, despite it looking like a blatant, undeniable penalty to every single person watching at home. And England's officiating nightmare didn't stop there. In the very next quarterfinal match against Norway, Jed Spence was initially awarded a massive spot kick after going down under pressure in the box, only for referee Clement Turpin to march over to the monitor and aggressively snatch the penalty right back away from them. Whichever way you choose to look at it, England spent their entire summer locked on a genuinely bewildering, deeply frustrating penalty roller coaster, and that constant, exhausting tug of war, given, not given, checked, completely, overturned, gets right to the absolute biggest fundamental problem with modern football. It has nothing to do with whether any single specific call was technically right or wrong. It's about what the technology has done to the base human experience of watching the sport itself. The entire magic of football, the whole reason we care, is wrapped up in that singular, explosive moment the ball hits the back of the net. A billion people simultaneously leap out of their seats at the exact same fraction of a second. Complete strangers scream and hug each other, and you lose all control of your senses. That shared, spontaneous eruption of pure human emotion is the entire point of watching sports. And the video assistant referee quietly murders it. Now, the ball hits the net, and everyone instantly freezes. You instinctively glance over at the linesman. You wait anxiously for the referee to put his finger to his earpiece, and only after some anonymous official sitting in a dark booth miles away signs off on the paperwork do you finally allow yourself to feel anything. And even then, the emotion is muted. It's delayed. It's completely robbed of its natural spark. There is a massive, rapidly growing chorus of fans who believe the honest answer is to just scrap the whole system entirely, to accept the occasional, natural, on-field human injustice as a perfectly fair price to pay for keeping the actual soul of the game alive. When a system explicitly engineered to make football fairer leaves this many people begging for it to be thrown in the trash, something has gone profoundly wrong with the sport. Anyway, back to the madness on the list. Number 14 takes us to a highly anticipated group stage match between powerhouse Brazil and a gritty Scotland side. Scottish defender Jack Hendry got caught completely dallying on the ball deep in his own half, an absolute defensive nightmare of a howler. Vinícius Jr. read the mistake in a flash, nipping in right behind him to steal the ball clean off his toes and roll it effortlessly into a completely empty net. It was a gorgeous, predatory piece of elite forward play. Except, the video assistant referee aggressively stepped in and ruled it out, claiming Vinícius had supposedly fouled Hendry in the split-second act of nicking the ball away. This was despite the actual physical contact looking incredibly slight at best. The exact kind of standard routine shoulder-to-shoulder physical contact you see officials completely bore 20 times a game. The BBC's own resident refereeing analyst, Dermot Gallagher, openly admitted on broadcast that Scotland got away with one and were incredibly lucky to get that call. Vinícius was left furiously screaming at the officials, completely unable to fathom how a brilliant, clean piece of anticipation had somehow been twisted into a foul against him. In the grand scheme of things, it barely mattered because Brazil eventually rolled to a comfortable 3-0 victory and topped the group anyway, which is the only reason this call doesn't rank much higher. But it stood as a massive early warning sign of a theme that would go on to completely define the summer. Goals being aggressively erased for minor physical contact you would literally need a high-powered magnifying glass to find. And finally, rounding out our countdown at number 15, we march straight into a massive round of 32 battle between Germany and Paraguay. Deep into the grueling, exhausting minutes of extra time, Jonathan Tah rose majestically above the defense to head Germany into a dramatic 2-1 lead, seemingly sending the 4-time world champions marching straight through to the round of 16. Cue the absolute explosions of joy in the stadium. Cue the immense relief washing over the German bench after a long, frustrating night of banging their heads against a stubborn, uncompromising Paraguayan defense. And then, right on cue, enter the review booth. The video officials decided that in the immediate build-up to the header, Waldemar Anton had supposedly blocked Paraguay's goalkeeper, Orlando Gil. Gil had gone crashing to the turf under what was undeniably the absolute lightest whisper of contact, and the historic goal was instantly scrubbed completely off the scoreboard. Pundits across the globe and Germany's own furious coaching staff were absolutely adamant that the physical contact was completely non-existent, and that the goal absolutely should have stood. It looked entirely like a goalkeeper who went looking for the softest possible touch, dove to the grass, and was rewarded massively for it by the technology. And the story got infinitely crueler from there. The match dragged its way into a high-stakes penalty shootout, and the exact same man whose glorious winning goal had just been completely chalked off by the booth, stepped up to take a critical penalty. He completely lost his composure, blazing the decisive spot kick miles over the crossbar to confirm one of the most stunning, shocking World Cup upsets in modern history. Going from a national hero to the man who single-handedly sent Germany packing, all in the span of a few chaotic minutes, and all thanks to an incredibly soft review call and a goalkeeper who knew exactly how to find the turf. It was a beautifully, fittingly baffling way to close out 15 disastrous decisions that successfully managed to turn a beautiful game into a month-long sterile courtroom drama. So that is the official list. And now, the entire traveling circus rolls on to its final, ultimate act this coming Sunday. Argentina and Spain are set to collide on the pitch for the single biggest, most prestigious prize in all of global sports. So, the only true question we have left to ask is the exact same one we've been screaming at the television screens all month long. Will Argentina get the rub of the green one more time when it matters most? We are just going to have to wait and see. Drop your honest thoughts down in the comments below, and I will see you all for the grand final.